بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Saudi Arabia just struck this deal up with Trump in terms of, I'll try to share my screen here real quick and show you guys the image of Saudi Arabia's military, their coat of arms, and some information here. It was a $40 billion deal that Trump just locked in with the Saudis. $40 billion. Okay, $40 billion deal. I'm going to share screens here and show you a few things about Saudi Arabia real quick so that people know. And hopefully you guys can see this here. That is their military symbol. Looks like an eye, doesn't it? That all-seeing eye, right? Yep. And it's all over the place when it comes to all of their imagery in Saudi Arabia. What's interesting is Saudi Arabia has connections to the Zionist regime inside of Israel, the Wahhabi roots. You can see here through all the images the connections to Saudi Arabia. Again, this is what you see in Saudi Arabia on every single one of their military people. This eye staring back at you. This eye. This eye. Now, what's interesting about Saudi Arabia is in some of the hadiths or their writings, they state, or some believe, that the Saudis are not true Muslims in terms of being Muslim, that they're fakes. I say this all the time in terms of the ones that worship the fallen ones, the ones that pose as fake Christians, Jews, and all this other stuff. But it gets deeper here, because in the writings, they state that a great fire will destroy Arabia, and it will come from the Yemen. This is very interesting, because in these texts, the Saudi Arabia is aware of these texts, and they're bombing the crap out of where? Yemen, constantly. But it is written in like prophetic terms in one of their hadiths that the hailstorm of fire that will consume them will come from Yemen. And they've been sparking up beef here with Iran. You have to think Iran, Saudi Arabia are directly across from the Persian Gulf from one another. Okay. So these two don't see eye to eye on this. The Iranians saying, no, the Saudis, the royal family, so to speak, that is running it are fakes. Like some would say the same with the crown in England, with the Khazarian roots, anyone that knows the true history. But this image is all over the place inside of Saudi Arabia. Now, when it comes to Saudi Arabia, well, most of you should know they have this thing they call the Hajj. I'm not sure if you guys know much of the detail. I don't know a whole lot of the detail about it. I know it's a massive trek that they make, a religious pilgrimage. But when doing some studying and doing some research, I come across some amazing things here. In Saudi Arabia, this thing that you're looking at, this right here, used to be, get this, it used to be an obelisk, which represents the phallus, okay? And the belief for the longest time is people would come by and they would throw rocks at the phallus that represented Satan, that represented evil, okay? They would throw rocks at the obelisk. So what happens? The Saudi royals, in a project paid for by guess who? The Bin Ladens. They come in and they replace all the obelisks with walls that mean absolutely nothing. Pretty walls that people can come in and throw the rocks at. So what do they do after making this move? They go to Arafat and they erect an obelisk. So they took what was in the region as being people throwing rocks at the obelisk and what it symbolized. They replaced that with a wall, and then they erected an obelisk up on Arafat. This is what they've done. So for those that don't know. Now, if you're wondering what else lies in Saudi Arabia that is kind of mystical, well, most people in Christianity, when they talk about the one called the Antichrist, over there, they would refer to this individual as being the Dajjal. And I covered this in another video. What's interesting about this is the writings of the Dajjal state that this individual will not be allowed to enter two cities inside of Saudi Arabia, Mecca and Medina. Would you believe not only is this dark Messiah real, not only do they know it, and in the Islamic writings, they write that Jesus, the son of Mary, is the one that will destroy him. For those that did not know that. They've built a whole city, a whole compound on a mountaintop, Kingdom Palace. And this is what all the locals will tell you is Dajjal Palace. This palace was built overlooking Mecca and Medina, where this individual can come to and reside. It's a full compound awaiting this individual. That's how real they take this. And look, I see some people in there talking about, you've got to understand the deception here of hijacking religions, hijacking Muslims, hijacking Christianity, hijacking the Jews. Like I said in the other video, the guys sending me the information from Israel are Jews from the streets of Israel that are exposing it, telling me that the government there has sold them out, that Netanyahu and them are fakes. It's the same thing I've been repeating this whole time, and stating that they do not hold the Sabbath. So you have to understand that there are individuals that are hijacking whole governments of countries and selling the people out. And if you're like, well, what do they worship? They worship the fallen ones. I've been trying to tell you this the whole time. It is very real. Call it Lucifer. Call it whatever you want. But they landed on Mount Hermon. It's what they're after. It's who they worship. They are the seeds of this bloodline. They believe this. Do you see now? All on the Zionist Jesuit command. You see? And this is why we always say Illuminati, to expose this. People that don't know, if you cannot see this, it is very murky waters. It's hard to figure out if you're very green or stepping onto the scene trying to figure out what's going on. But let's go back to when the towers fell. Who was involved? Thank you, Cara. Well, let's just put it this way. The Jesuit, the Black Pope, the deception out of the Vatican, they're always tied into this, okay? Then let's look at the empire of the city. For those of you that do not know what this is what D.C. is. London is a part of it as well. Vatican is the religious hub. London is the financial hub. D.C. is the military hub. They all fly a flag with 3 stars that represents the empire of the city. These areas have their own laws. They have their own mailmen, their own everything. You see? And they are a part of something different. Treating these countries as the United States as a corporation. And everyone with their social security number, a part of that. But I guess in terms of this whole Saudi Arabia thing, what brings me to this is I know Trump's going there. And when I look at 9/11, who brought down the towers, the connections with the Mossad, him going there, and Saudi Arabia being involved, all the same goons that have been involved with all these false flags in the past. Same old song and dance.